I thought I was just another face in the crowd at the charity event until my ex tried to humiliate me publicly, and everyone found out. I was the guest of honor while he was left standing alone. If you've ever been told you were good enough to love but not good enough to marry, you'll understand exactly why I walked out that night without looking back. My name is Marley. I'm 30 now, but when all of this happened, I was 29, hopelessly in love with a man named Cole. We had been together for almost 5 years, 5 birthdays, 5 Christmases, 5 sets of vacation photos taped to our fridge. We shared a 1-bedroom apartment with a leaky sink and a couch we picked out together. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, or at least I thought it was. When Cole proposed on my 28th birthday, it was one of the happiest moments of my life. It wasn't flashy, just us, a small dinner at the Italian place we loved, and a simple gold band that felt more valuable than any diamond could. I posted the obligatory hand photo, called my mom sobbing, and immediately threw myself into planning a wedding for the following spring. The first few months of being engaged were bliss, picking out venues, laughing about cake flavors, binge-watching bridal shows late into the night. But slowly, things started to shift. At first, it was little comments, easy to brush off. Like when Cole suggested that maybe I should try dressing a little sharper at his company parties. Or when he mentioned that some of his friends' wives had MBAs or high-powered careers, and it would be interesting if I considered going back to school. I laughed it off. We joked about me being the creative type, the free spirit. I ran a small but successful freelance design business from home. I loved what I did. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. I thought he loved that about me too. Then came the subtle put-downs. The way he'd introduce me at networking events as someone who does design stuff instead of saying I owned my own business. The times he'd correct me mid-conversation, acting like I couldn't string a professional sentence together. I told myself he was just nervous trying to impress people, but the cracks were starting to show. The real blow came one evening, about 2 months before our wedding date. Cole had dragged me along to a fancy cocktail event his firm was hosting. I hated those nights, the fake laughter, the endless small talk, but I went anyway, wearing a new dress and heels that pinched my toes bloody. At some point, I wandered into the hallway to find the bathroom, and that's when I heard him. Cole was standing with 2 of his colleagues, drink in hand, laughing that low, smug laugh he saved for when he thought I wasn't listening. I froze when I heard my name. "Marley's sweet, sure," Cole was saying, "but let's be real, she's not exactly wife material for where I'm headed. I need someone who can help me climb higher, not decorate apartments." They all laughed, a hard, mean sound that cut deeper than anything I had ever heard in my life. I don't even remember walking back into the main room. I just remember my ears ringing, my throat burning. When Cole found me later and slipped his arm around my waist, asking if I was ready to leave, I smiled. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. And then I said, right there in front of half his colleagues, "Actually, Cole, I think you're right. You do need someone else, and so do I." His face went pale. He sputtered something about not meaning it that way, but I was already pulling the ring off my finger and dropping it into his hand. I grabbed my clutch, turned around, and walked out the door without a single look back. But the real fallout? That didn't start until 2 days later, when I found out just how far Cole was willing to go to save his image and ruin mine. The morning after I left Cole at that cocktail party, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat on my tiny balcony wrapped in a blanket, and tried to map out what came next. Canceling the wedding, finding a new place to live, telling my parents. I knew it would be messy, but I thought, foolishly, that at least it would be clean between us. We were done. End of story. I underestimated Cole. The texts started that afternoon. At first, they were frantic apologies. Long paragraphs about how he'd been drinking, how he didn't mean it, how stress from work had warped his mind. He loved me. He swore. He needed me. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. Suddenly, I was giving up too easily. I was running away from a life most people would kill for. He made it sound like our relationship was some grand opportunity I was squandering instead of 2 people who were supposed to love each other. By the second day, it got worse. I started getting messages from mutual friends, people who had RSVP'd yes to our wedding, asking if I was okay. At first, I thought they were just checking in, but then the rumors started leaking back to me. Cole had told people I was unstable, that I had freaked out over a harmless comment and abandoned him days before our wedding. He hinted that maybe I'd been struggling mentally for a while and he was trying to get me help. I couldn't believe it. This man, who had mocked me behind my back, was now painting himself as the concerned fiancé blindsided by my supposed breakdown. It was vicious, and the worst part was, some people believed him. Vendors called me asking about the cancellation. One even asked in a too gentle voice if I needed someone to talk to. A few old friends, people I hadn't heard from in months, sent vague thinking of you texts that made it clear they thought I had lost my mind. I could feel my world shrinking. Instead of focusing on healing, I spent my days putting out fires. I called venues, florists, photographers. I sent mass emails to guests. I explained the truth to those close enough to deserve an explanation and let the rest believe whatever they wanted, but the damage was done. My phone became a source of anxiety. I couldn't open Instagram without seeing people speculating about what had happened. Mutual friends posted cryptic quotes about loyalty and betrayal, like high school kids fighting over a breakup. It was humiliating. And through it all, Cole kept texting. Little reminders of the life we'd planned together. Photos of the apartment, empty now without me. Screenshots of honeymoon deals. We could still take if we fixed things. No apologies, no ownership, just manipulation. 2 weeks after the split, I went back to the apartment to collect the last of my things. I chose a time when I knew Cole would be at work. I didn't want to see him. I couldn't trust myself not to shatter. I moved quickly, stuffing clothes and books into boxes. I barely glanced at the framed photos on the walls. I didn't want to give them power over me anymore. I was halfway through packing the kitchen when I heard the door open behind me. It was Cole. He stood there, blocking the doorway, arms crossed like he had every right to be angry. "I can't believe you're really doing this," he said, throwing everything away. I kept my head down, focusing on wrapping a set of glasses. I didn't trust myself to speak. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Marley," he said, voice hardening. "Nobody else is going to put up with you the way I did." I felt something in me snap. I turned around, ready to finally say everything I had swallowed for the past year, but before I could open my mouth, Cole dropped his final bombshell. He smirked and said, "You're lucky I even proposed in the first place. Do you know how many people said you were out of my league?" For a second, the world blurred around me. The man I had loved, the man I almost married, genuinely believed he had been doing me a favor. And standing there in that apartment we once called ours, I realized for the first time, Cole had never loved me. He loved the idea of someone who made him feel superior. After that moment in the kitchen, standing there while Cole smirked like he'd just delivered some grand truth, I didn't say a word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just calmly finished packing my things, loaded them into my car, and left that chapter of my life in the rearview mirror. But moving on wasn't as easy as driving away. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Every morning, I woke up in the tiny sublet I had found last minute and felt the crushing silence pressing down on me. No more shared coffee mugs. No more lazy Saturday mornings. No more pretending. I was alone. Really, truly alone for the first time in years. And the thing that hurt the most wasn't losing Cole. It was realizing how much of myself I had lost along the way. I buried myself in work. I took on every freelance design project I could find, desperate to fill the hours, the space, the aching void. Some days I crushed it. Other days I found myself staring at a blank screen, wondering if Cole had been right all along. Was I just not enough? One night, after a particularly brutal day, I found myself scrolling through an old group chat with some friends I hadn't seen in months. We'd drifted apart during my relationship with Cole. He hadn't liked them, said they were too immature or stuck in the past. Slowly, I had let them fade away. Before I could lose my nerve, I sent a simple text. "Hey, miss you guys, hope you're doing okay." To my shock, the responses poured in almost immediately. It turned out they hadn't forgotten me. They hadn't judged me. They'd been waiting for me to find my way back. That night, we made plans for brunch. It felt terrifying and exciting all at once, like stepping onto a bridge I wasn't sure could still hold my weight. When Sunday rolled around, I almost canceled. I stood in front of my mirror for 20 minutes, hating every outfit I tried on. Nothing looked right. I didn't look like the confident, successful woman I was pretending to be. I looked tired, fragile, breakable. But somehow, I made it to the little cafe we had picked, and when I walked through the door, there they were, laughing, waving, making space at the table without hesitation. It was like no time had passed. Over coffee and pancakes, the stories started spilling out. Not just mine, but theirs too. Bad breakups, new jobs, family drama, life. Real, messy, beautiful life. I laughed until I cried. I cried until I laughed. And somewhere in between, I started to feel like myself again. After brunch, one of my friends, Jess, invited me to a small party her brother was throwing the following weekend. Nothing fancy, just a backyard bonfire, a few beers, and a bunch of people trying to forget their work weeks. At first, I hesitated. The idea of walking into a group of strangers felt overwhelming, but Jess wouldn't let it go. "Come on," she said, bumping my shoulder. "You need some new memories." So, I agreed. The night of the party, I showed up late, heart pounding in my chest. I clutched a six-pack of beer like it was a shield and hovered awkwardly near the food table, trying to look casual. And that's when I saw him. He was sitting by the fire, a little apart from the crowd, tossing marshmallows into the flames like he didn't have a care in the world. There was something about him, this easy calmness that pulled me in before I even realized what was happening. Jess caught me staring and grinned. "Oh, that's Miles. My brother's old college roommate. He just moved back to town." I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but before I could, Miles looked up and caught my eye. He smiled, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like something someone had settled for. I felt seen. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have known, was that Miles wasn't just going to change my night. He was about to change my entire life. Meeting Miles felt like stepping out of a storm and into solid ground. We started slow. Texts at first, then coffee dates that turned into long walks through the park, talking about everything from stupid childhood dreams to the mistakes that almost broke us. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to impress me. He just showed up fully himself and let me be fully me. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about saying the wrong thing. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit into someone else's world. I was rebuilding my own. Meanwhile, Cole must have sensed it, because like clockwork, the texts started again. At first, they were casual. "Hope you're doing okay." "Miss seeing you around." Then they shifted. "Remember that trip we planned to Greece? I found our old itinerary." "You looked really good at Jess's party." "Yeah, turns out Cole had spies, small-town problems." I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. Part of me wanted to see just how desperate he would get. Turns out, pretty desperate. About 2 months after I met Miles, Cole sent me a long, rambling text about how he missed us, how he realized he'd made a huge mistake, how he had been too focused on appearances and forgot what really mattered. He ended it with, "I know it's crazy, but maybe we could find our way back to each other." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, not with hope or confusion, but with pure, burning clarity. Cole didn't miss me. He missed controlling me. He missed the version of me that questioned her worth every time he snapped his fingers. That's when I realized I wasn't the same woman he broke. I showed the message to Miles later that night. I expected him to be mad or jealous. Instead, he just smiled sadly and said, "Do what's best for you. He doesn't get a say anymore." Something in me clicked. I was done playing defense. It was time to take my life back, on my terms. I didn't answer Cole's message. Instead, I posted a photo on Instagram. Just a simple shot of me and Miles laughing in front of a bonfire. No captions about revenge, no cryptic quotes, just pure, unfiltered happiness. The reaction was immediate. Within an hour, Cole viewed the story. Then came the rapid-fire texts. Is that your new boyfriend? Wow, you move fast. Guess I didn't really know you after all. Each one more bitter than the last. I still didn't respond. 2 days later, Jess told me that Cole had shown up drunk at a local bar, loudly telling anyone who would listen that I had betrayed him, that I owed him another chance. That's when I decided to end it properly. I sent him one message, just one. You were right, Cole. I wasn't wife material for the life you wanted, but I'm exactly the partner someone else prayed for. Please stop contacting me. No anger, no venom, just the truth. He didn't reply. I thought that was the end of it. But life apparently had one more plot twist waiting. A week later, while grabbing groceries, I ran into one of Cole's old co-workers, the same group he used to desperately impress, the ones he thought I was never good enough for. She smiled awkwardly when she saw me, then leaned in and whispered, "By the way, you dodged a bullet. Turns out Cole was fired last month. Something about expense reports and inappropriate behavior at a client event." I must have looked stunned because she laughed and added, "Yeah, corporate doesn't care how you dress if you're blowing their money." I walked out of that store in a daze. All that time, Cole had been tearing me down, convincing me I wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy. Meanwhile, he had been the liability all along, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. After hearing about Cole's downfall at the grocery store, I thought I had closure. Honestly, I wasn't even angry anymore. Just done. But life wasn't finished serving justice. A few weeks later, Jess invited me to a charity event downtown. Something small, local, raising funds for a community art program. Miles offered to come with me, and we made a night of it, dressed up, laughed through awkward speeches, bought way too many raffle tickets. I didn't expect to see Cole there. He was standing by the bar, looking thinner, older somehow. He had that frantic energy people get when they're trying too hard to seem important. His suit didn't fit right. His smile was tight. And when he noticed me with Miles, something in his face twisted. I was ready to pretend he didn't exist, but fate had other plans. The event had a silent auction, and to my shock, one of the prizes was a design consultation for a local business, donated by me. My little freelance company had grown enough that people actually wanted to showcase it. Cole saw the sign. His eyes flicked from the poster to me, and I could almost hear the calculations in his head. Later that night, while Miles was getting us drinks, Cole approached. "Marley," he said, trying for a smooth tone and failing miserably. "Didn't expect to see you here. Looks like things are going well for you." I nodded, keeping my face neutral. I wasn't giving him an inch. I heard you opened your own firm," he added, glancing at the auction table. "Pretty impressive. I guess all that decorating apartments paid off after all." It was meant to sound like a compliment. It didn't. I just smiled and said, "Turns out being underestimated is a hell of a motivator." His face flushed. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to insult me again. But before he could speak, the event organizer stepped up to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "we have a special thank you to one of our donors tonight, Marley Quinn, for generously supporting local businesses and inspiring young entrepreneurs." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink back. I stood tall. I smiled. I let them clap. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cole retreat toward the exit, shoulders slumped, head down. That was the real closure. Not a screaming match, not a dramatic confrontation. Just the quiet, undeniable truth that I had built something real while he was too busy tearing people down. When the applause faded, Miles was already waiting for me, drink in hand, eyes shining with pride. "You ready to go?" he asked. I nodded. As we walked out into the crisp night air, he squeezed my hand gently and said, "You know, I think you were always this strong. You just needed someone who saw it." I smiled, feeling lighter than I ever had before. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it isn't cruel, it's living so fully, so unapologetically that the people who tried to break you don't even recognize the person you've become. And if you've ever had to walk away from someone who made you doubt your worth, I hope you know you're not alone. If you made it this far, drop a 2 in the comments so we can celebrate your strength together. And if you love hearing real stories of heartbreak, healing, and true justice, make sure to subscribe for more, because sometimes the quiet victories are the ones that echo the loudest.